श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम्। वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देवसर्वकार्ये सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विशेषगुरोगिणां निधे सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। वेदव्यासं स्वात्मारूपं सत्यसन्धं परायणं शान्तं जितेन्द्रियक्रोधं सशिष्यं प्रणमाम्यहम्। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं। नारायणपरो व्यक्तादण्डमव्यक्तसम्भवं मण्डस्यान्तस्तु मे लोकाः सप्तद्वीपाचमेधिनीम्। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणे स्वयं व्यासेन कृतितां पुराणमुनिनां मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीमष्टादशाध्यायिनीं भत्वामरसन्दधां भगवद्गीते भवेद्वेषिणीं श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। अवतीर्णश्च कालट्यां केदारेन्दर्हितश्च चतुष्पीठप्रतिष्ठाता चेदाच्छङ्करो गुरुः। So we were looking at previously 41st shloka in this adhyaya, Jnana-Karma-Sanyasa Yoga, where previously we looked at the shloka 40th shloka where Ajñascha Shraddhadanascha Samshayatma Vinishyati Nayam Loko Asti Na Paro Na Sukham Samshayatmanaha. So the one who has doubts, those ignorants and those who are faithless, and for them who are doubtful, for them they vinashyati, they suffer, they get destroyed, or they do not achieve anything. They do not achieve, they either in this loka, in this world, or in the next, they do not have any happiness. And for those doubtful, there is no such thing. They do not have achieve anything. They do not have any sukham. They do not have any happiness. That's what Krishna said. So here in this 41st shloka, he says, Yoga Sanyasta Karmanam Jnana Sanchinna Sanchayam Atmavantam Na Karmani Nivadhanti Dhananjaya. O Arjuna, O Dhananjaya, actions do not bind one who has renounced the actions through yoga, whose doubts have been fully dispelled by the jnana, and who is not inadvertent. So yoga Sanyasta Karmana means those who renounce the ritualistic karma, dedicating their body, mind, and soul to Ishvara. Jnana means knowledge. Sanchinna means dispelled. Sanchayan means doubts. Atmavanta means situated in the knowledge of the Atma. And Na means not. Karmani means action. Nivadnanti means bind. Dhananjaya is addressing Arjuna, the conqueror of the wealth. So here Acharya explains this, saying that Yoga Sanyasta Karmana means Paramartha Darshana Lakshanena Yogena Sanyastani Karmani Yena Paramartha Darshana Dharma Adharma Khyani Tam Yoga Sanyasta Karmana. So the one who has renounced the actions through the yoga, that is the person who is the knower of that supreme goal, Paramartha Darshana. So the one who has who knows that supreme goal, that and by whom the actions which are known as dharma and adharma have been renounced. So because this person who has attained this knowledge, who has this knower of this Paramartha Darshana, so that is the supreme goal, such a person, he has renounced both dharma and adharmic karmas, right? So whether it is virtue or sins, he has renounced both. He does not have any results attachment to any of that through the yoga characterized by the knowledge of this Paramartha Darshana, the supreme goal. Such a person is known as Yoga Sanyasta Karmanam. So he is in that karma, that yoga is known as Yoga Sanyasta. So how does one become detached from the actions through yoga? Bhagavan says he is Jnana Sanchinna Samshaya. So he is Jnanena Atma Atmeshwaraikatva Darshana Lakshanena Sanchina Sanchayo Yasya Saha Jnana Sanchina Sanchaya. So he says, Acharya explains that the one whose doubts, Samshaya has been fully dispelled, Sanchinna. So who has been dispelled. So the ones whose doubts have been fully dispelled by jnana, by knowledge, characterized as the realization of the identity of Atma Ishvara Aikatva. Ekatva. So this Ekatva, this identity of the individual Atma and Ishvara who has that realization, this Jivatma and Paramatma's identity of that one who has realized that, such a person whose doubts have been dispelled by this jnana. O Arjuna, he who thus renounced the actions, like this one who has renounced the actions through the yoga, such a person is Atmavantam. He is Apramattam Guna Cheshta Rupena Drishtani Karmani Na Nibadhanti. So, who is not inadvertent, who is not careless. Such a person is not careless. For him, the actions seen as the activities of the gunas. So, and they nibadnanti, they do not bind him. It's a binding again. Acharya explains that anishtadi rupam phalam narabhante. So they do not produce the result in the form of evil and so on. They do not produce anything. So again here it says that karmani, Acharya explains that, seen as the results of the activities of the gunas. So gunas again we looked at in the previous adhyaya, right? So where we in the 28th shloka, Bhagavan explains that Tattvaitu Mahabhava Gunakarma Vibhagayoha Guna Guneshu Vartanta Itimatva Nasajjate. The one who is the knower of the facts about the varieties of the gunas, the qualities, and the actions, does not become attached to thinking that these organs, the senses, act on the objects of the organs or the senses, right? So that's what he is explaining here. So effectively here what Bhagavan is saying is, actions do not bind the one who has dedicated his actions through yoga, that is the one by whom the actions, which is the karmas, have been dedicated, sannyasta, to Ishvara through the yoga, consisting in the attitude of equanimity that is characterized by the adoration of the Ishvara. So Ishvara Prityartham, one does the karmas. So this again said, similar thing was said in the second adhyaya, Sankhya Yoga, in the 48th shloka, where Bhagavan says, Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyakta dhananjaya siddha siddhyo samo bhutva samattam yoga uchyate. So where he said that by being established in the yoga, undertake actions, casting of attachment and remaining equipoised in success and failure. Equanimity is that equipoisedness or equanimity is known as yoga. So that's what Bhagavan said in this Sankhya Yoga. We looked at that, right? So that type of karma, one who is in that state, for him, actions do not bind, or the one whose actions have been renounced through the yoga consisting of realization of this highest truth. So such a person's actions do not bind him. So, and such a person, the one whose doubts have been dispelled by the jnana, by one whom the doubt has been dispelled by this knowledge in the form of certitude about the Atma, can have renunciation of all the actions through the yoga. So that's why there won't be any doubts for him. So that's why Jnana Sanchina Samshaya. So he has all the doubts removed by that. And Bhagavan says that the one who is not inadvertent, the one who is always careful, such a person is always careful because he is focusing on this, and actions for lokasangraha or anything to keep the people, prevent the people going from ashta if one performs, or the actions performed in the form of purposeless movements just for keeping the body alive. Those things do not bind him, they do not produce him any desirable effect or undesirable effect for him, or the mixture of the two, because such a person who is possessed of the knowledge as a result of being not being inadvertent, who is dedicated his actions through yoga as a result of having that doubt dispelled by the knowledge. So that's what Bhagavan explains. And he says that since one whose doubts have been destroyed by this jnana, uh, that is arising from the destruction of the impurities of the body and mind. The doubts which arise from the destruction, the jnana which arises from the destruction of the impurities of the body and mind as a result of practicing this karma yoga, such a person does not get bound by the action owing to simply the fact of his actions having been burnt by the jnanagni dagdha, and yasmacha jnana-karma-anushtana vishaye samshayavan vinashyati. So, and such a person, since one who has doubts with regard to the practice of the yogas and knowledge and action gets ruined. So such a things gets ruined. And Bhagavan then says, this is because of this, since this is so, he explains in the next shloka, tasmad 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 dajnana sambhuta ritstam jnanasi natmanah chitvainam samshaya yoga matishtottishta bharata. So therefore, O Bharata, take course to yoga and rise up, cut asunder with the sword of knowledge this doubt of your own in your heart arising from the ignorance. So tasmat means therefore, ajnana sambhutam means born of ignorance, ritstam means ritstam means situated in the heart, jnana means knowledge, asina means with the sword, asina means sword, with sword, and atmana means of the self, chitva means cut asunder, cut into pieces, enam means this, samshaya means doubt, yogam means in the karma yoga, atishta means take shelter, uttishta means arise, bharata is addressing Arjuna, O descendant of Bharata. So here the explanation is for the shloka is Bhagavan explains that those who doubt do not attain happiness in this world or in the next world, and these doubts have been killed, destroyed by the jnana, and that's why now he says that cut all those doubts, whatever you have, through this jnana, and uttishta, do your karma yoga. That's what he says in this shloka. So he says that therefore he said tasmat means therefore, means what he said in the 41st shloka, 40th shloka, and so on. Therefore, O Arjuna, take recourse to, that is to undertake this yoga, the performance of the actions, the karma yoga, which is the means of full illumination, full jnana. And now rise up for the battle. Cut asunder with this sword of knowledge, jnanasena. So that means with this sword of knowledge which is full of illumination, which is the destroyer of defects such as sorrows and delusion and so on. And that jnana itself is the sword here. With that sword of knowledge, cut this. And this doubt you have in your own, which is the source of your own ruin and which is the most sinful thing, that doubt you have in your heart, residing in your buddhi, in your intellect, arising from the ignorance, born of non-discrimination, born of aviveka. You don't have that viveka, cut aside. So remove that through this jnana. So like this Bhagavan explains, he says that remove that, then you will be, by removing that, you will be, then after removing that, rise up. So prepare for this battle because you should perform this karma yoga. This is your karma yoga. So perform that. So like this, Bhagavan explains. And with that, so we come to end of this adhyaya here. So here again, Om Tatsaditi. श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे ज्ञानकर्मसन्न्यासयोगो नाम चतुर्थः. So fourth chapter named as Jnana-Karma-Sanyasa Yoga in this Bhagavad Gita with this Brahma Vidya, Krishna, which is narrated by Krishna to Arjuna, is concludes here. And again, this is the fourth adhyaya Bhashya from Sri Shankara also concludes here. So again, what Bhagavan says here is the notion here is that in this chapter, in this adhyaya, broadly, very broadly, there are two things Bhagavan says. One is Anishwaratva Bhava, which Arjuna had, like that, for example, Krishna is not Bhagavan. Okay, so he is not the Ishvara. So that kind of thoughts he had, that was dispelled. Through that, by dispelling that, devotion and faith have been strengthened. And then Bhagavan also says here, explains that the steadfastness in the action which leads to jnana is concluded here as well. So nirlepa karma, which is the root of atma jnana. So that's what has been said here in this adhyaya. So if you just quickly recap, again, that's the broadly two things said. One is the Anishwaratva Bhava, so Bhagavan's notion that he is not Ishvara, that's removed. And the second point is Karma Yoga, performing that with Nishtha, with steadfastness, leads to Jnana. That's what concluded by Bhagavan, right? But again, broadly, you can classify these 42 shlokas into four groups. One is known as Divya Janma Vishaya. The Divya Janma is divine birth, okay, or avatara. The second one is Karma Vichara. So Karma is action and inaction and those kind of discussion. And the third one is Yajna Vichara, so related to the sacrifices. And the fourth one is Jnana Vichara. So like this, the group shlokas can be grouped as well in this adhyaya. So if you look at Divya Janma Vishaya, right? So divine avatar related shlokas, we start from the very first shloka where it starts with Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Yum Vivasate Yogam, Proktavan Aham Avyayam, Vivasvan Manave Praha, Manorichvahava, Manorichvakave Abhravet. Evam Paramparatma Vivam Rajarshiyo Vidho Sa Kaleneva Mahata Yogo Nashta Parantabha Sa Eva Yam Maya Tedya Yoga Prokta Puratana Bhaktosi Me Saka Cheti Rahasyam Hetadamam. So Bhagavan says that in the first sloka, so I told this yoga, so that is again previously in the Sankhya Yoga and then in the Karma Yoga in the third chapter we looked at, right? I told this yoga previous to Vivaswan, and Vivaswan told this to Manu, Manu told this to Ikshvaku, and like this it came through many generations, but now it has lost because you are my Saka, friend, and also Bhakta, you are my devotee, I'm telling you this. And when Bhagavan says that, Arjuna Uvacha, Aparam Bhavato Janma, Param Janma Vivasvata, Katametad Dvijaniyam, Tomada Proktavanita. So Arjuna says that Vivaswan was born many births ago. You are born now, you are here now. How can you? So two types of questions there from Arjuna. We looked at. One is, if you are real Bhagavan, how can you have this type of birth, like getting birth in the womb and then going through all this childhood and growing up and all those kind of things? How can you have a Bhagavan if you are Bhagavan like that? How can you go up like a normal being? If you are not the Bhagavan, then just like me, you don't remember what you did in the previous births. If you have told Vivaswan, let's say 100 births ago, you can't remember that now, just like I don't remember what happened previously. So those kind of questions were asked by Arjuna. Bhagavan says that in the fifth sloka, he says, Bahuni me vatitane janmani tavacha Arjuna, तान्यहं वेद सर्वाणि न त्वं वेत्त परन्तप अजोऽपि सन्नव्ययात्मा भूतानाम् ईश्वरोऽपि सन् प्रकृतिं स्वामधिष्ठाय सम्भवाम्यात्मा मायया. So I have lot of many births, but I remember all that, but you don't remember. So prakritim swamadhishtaya sambhavami. So controlling my own maya, I take avatara, and then he explains the purpose of those divine incarnations, those avatars. He says that yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyuddharama dharmasya tadatmanam sriyamyam paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So whenever there is dharma deteriorating and adharma increasing, at that time I take avatara. And then why I take avatara? To protect the sadhus and then destroy the those who are evil, wicked, and restore the dharma samsthapanarthaya. I incarnate again and again and again. I take this avatara again and again. So like this he explains, and then Bhagavan explains that Jnana Yoga is the sole means to moksha. He explains in the 9th shloka, he says, Janma karma cha me divyam divyamevam, and Janma karma cha me divyamevam yo vetti tattvadah त्यक्ता देहं पुनर्जन्म नैति मामेति सोऽर्जुन वीतरागभय क्रोधा मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः भवतो ज्ञानतपसा पूता madbhava. So he very says that the one who knows like this my divine incarnations, that person will not get rebirth because he attains me, and many who are devoid of the attachment, fear and anger and things like that, who are absorbed in me, who have taken refuge in me, who are purified by the austerities of this jnana tapasa, they have attained my state, they have become me. So then he explains these divine dispensations of these worldly benefits and salvations, the moksha and things like that. He explains, where he explains in the 11th shloka, ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham mahamvartanuvartante manushya partha sarvashah कांक्षद कर्माणां सिद्धिं यजन्तः इह देवताः क्षिप्रं हे मानुषे लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा. Where Bhagavan explains that according to the manner in which they approach me, I favor them. So if someone worships me with deep devotion, I give them the benefit of that. If not, I will punish them. So like this, whatever one gets. Again, human beings follow my path. Whatever they do, they always follow my path. Again, longing for the fruition of their actions, the rights and the duties they perform, they worship many devatas. And in the human world, success from action comes very quickly, like this Bhagavan says. And then he explains related to this karmas. He explains that Chaturvarnam, the Varnashrama, he says that institution has been created by me. He says Chaturvarnam maya srishtam gunagarva vibhagasha tasya kartaram api mam vidya kartaram avyam. So he says that these 4 varnas, Brahma, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, have been created by me through the classification of gunas and due karmas. So like this, it has been classified. So again, karmas that's coming from the previous birth and things like that, it has been classified by me, and the samskaras that's coming through the many births. So even though I am the agent of this classification, still you should think that I am the non-agent, I am the changeless, I am avya, like this he explains. Then we come to the second part, which I said the first part is divine incarnations, right? So divinity of the Bhagavan. That's what we looked at up to shloka 13. Now we look at the karma vicharma, action and inaction related topics, where Bhagavan explains that action without attachment does not bind the Atma. He says that namam karmani limpanti name karma phalaspraha idimam yo vijanati karma bhirna sa badhyate evam jnata kritam karma purvairapi mokshibhe kuru karmaiva tatsmatvam purvataram kritam. So he says that actions do not taint me, and because for me there is no hankering of the results of those actions. One who knows me like that, they do not bound by the actions. And he says that having known like this, duties were performed even by the ancient seekers of the mokshas, and therefore you also undertake action itself as performed by those ancient ones, like this Bhagavan explains him. And then he explains the real nature of action and inaction. He says that kim karma karmeti kavayorapyate apyatra mohitaha tatte karma pravakshami yajnata mokshasya shubhat karmano hapi bodhavyam cha vikarmanah akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati. He says that karmanya karma यह पश्येद कर्मणि च कर्मयः सा बुद्धिमान मनुष्येषु सायुक्त कर्म कृत. He says that in the 16th sloka onwards he explains this karma differences and the nature of them. He says that the intelligence is the one. Even the intelligent are confounded by what is karma and akarma, action and inaction. I will tell you that action, by knowing this, one becomes free from the evil, ashubhas. And then he says that because there is something that to be known even about the action, and there is something to be known about even the prohibited action, and something to be known about the inaction. The true nature of action is inscrutable. So that's what he says. So he says again, the action, prohibited action, and inaction. So those three things he says, karma, vikarma, akarma. Three things he explains there. And then the one who finds inaction in the action and action in the inaction, such a person is the wise one, and he is engaged in the yoga, and he is the performer of all the actions. So like this in the 18th shloka he explains, we'll see that. And then we see who is that yogi, who is that sage, who is that rishi, who is in this state. He says, Bhagavan says in the 19th shloka, he says, yasya sarve samarambha karma kama sankalpa varjitaha jnanagni dagda karmanam tamahu panditam buddha. So he says that the wise call him learned one, whose actions are all devoid of desires and their causes, and whose actions have been burnt away by this jnanagni. So this fire of wisdom. Such a person is the sage. Such a person is the learned one. And he says that such a sage of worldly action is an example to the other people. He says that in the 20th shloka, he says that tekta karma phalasanga. He says that tekta karma pala sangam nityatrupto nirashriya karmanyapi pravrittopi naiva kinchit karoti saha. So he who has given up the attachment of the results of the actions, he who is ever contented, depending on nothing, he really does not do anything even though he is engaged in the action. And then he says that such a person, that a wise person, actions of his actions for bodily maintenance can only be he performs. And he says in the 21st shloka, he says, Nirashrir yata chittatma takta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvan napoti kilbhijam. Just to keep the maintain the body, if one performs the actions, there is no sin attaches to him. One without solicitation, if organs under full control, mind and organ under full control, if one accrues like that, then he attains no sin attached to it. The edrichya lavasamtushto dandvatito vimatsara samasiddha avasiddho cha krutvapi nibadhyate. So again, remaining satisfied with whatever comes unasked for and having transcended that dvandas, dualities, free from spite and equipoised under success and a failure, such a person not bound by even by performing the karmas. And then he says that such a wise person, worldly action does not bind him. Katasangasya muktasya jnana avastita chetusa yajnaya charata karma samagram praviliyate. So is there such a person, liberated person, who's got rid of attachment, whose mind is fixed on this knowledge, actions undertaken for this yajna itself totally gets destroyed. Such a karma always totally gets destroyed. So having said that, now we come to the third message or grouping of this shlokas from the 24th, where we start to see the yajna vicharas. The first one, he talks about the jnana yajna, where he says brahma arpanam brahma have brahmagno brahmanahutam brahmayudena gantavyam brahma karma smadhina. So here that jnani sees that everything as brahma, right? So and then we look at different types of sacrifices affected by the karmas, different types of sacrifice involved in karma. He says दैवमेवापरे यज्ञं योगिनः पर्युपास्ते ब्रह्माज्ञावपरे यज्ञं यज्ञेनैव उपजुह्वति श्रोत्रादीन् इन्द्रियान् अन्ये सम्यक् अग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयान् अन्य इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति सर्वाणि इन्द्रियकर्माणि प्राणकर्माणि चापरे आत्मसंयमयोगाग्नो जुह्वति ज्ञानदीपिते द्रव्ययज्ञास्तपोयज्ञा योगयज्ञास्तदापरे स्वाध्याय ज्ञान यज्ञाश्च यथेह संचितव्रतः अपाने जिह्वति प्राणं प्राणे पानं तथा परे प्राणापानगति रुद्ध्वा प्राणायामपरायणाः अपरे निहताहार प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेप्येते यज्ञविदो यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः यज्ञशिष्टामृतो भुजो यान्ति ब्रह्मसनातनं नायं लोकस्य यज्ञस्य कुतोऽन्य कुरुसत्तमा एवं बहुविधा यज्ञ वितधा ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विद्धि तान् सर्वान् evam jnatva vimokshase. So he talks about daiva yajna and he says brahma yajna and then he says shrotradi indriyani. So it's all the indriyas fully controlling them, and then vishayas controlling and burning them in the indriyas itself, and then indriya karma. So again, indriyas controlling them, atma samyoga yoga, agni burning them in the jnana, and then dravya yajna, tapo yajna, jnana yajna, yoga yajna, swadhyaya yajna, all these things. And then we look at the pranayama, upon pranayama, and then we look at again nihatahara, so controlling the food. All this, like this, different types of yajnas were, I think about 13 different types of yajnas were explained. And then Bhagavan says that the one who eats after yajna-shishta, so after performing all these yajnas, such a person eats the amrita. And then like this, different types of yajnas were performed by this karma, and one who performs all this will get vimoksha, says such a person attains the moksha. And then final topic covered in this adhyaya is related to jnana vichara, where in the 33rd shloka Bhagavan starts saying that the jnana sacrifice is the superior to all the other sacrifices mentioned before. From 24th shloka onwards he says Shreyam dravyamaya yajna Nayajna Parantapa Sarvam Karmakilam Partha Jnane Parisamapita. So Dravya, among all the yajnas, Jnana yajna is the supreme, because everything ends in jnana. And then he says how and where to one should seek that jnana. He says Tadvidhi Pranipatena Paripashneya Sevaya Upadekshanti Te Jnanam Jnaninas Tattvadarshina Yajna Jnatva Na Punarmohamevam Yasiti Pandava Yena Bhutanyashena Drakshasatmanyato Mahi. So going to Guru, worshipping him, doing the service, and like this, one should seek that jnana, and that Guru will give you the jnana. So, attaining that, one, again, they will not return to any other desires and things like that. And then that jnana is the consumer of all the sins and actions, where he says that apichedasi papibhya sarvebhya papakrittama sarvam jnana plave naiva vrijanam santarishyate yataindasi samiddhognir भस्मसात् कुरुते अर्जुन ज्ञानाग्नि सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते तथा नहि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते तत्स्वयं योगसंसिद्ध कालेन आत्मनि विन्दति. So again, this jnanagni burns all the papas, all the karmas of the previous karmas, whether sanchita karma or agami karma. He burns everything. Only prarabdha karma continues till this body drops off. So till that time it remains. So that's what he says here. Everything is get burnt, and jnana and sudrisham, so pavitram, like this jnana, there is nothing equal to this jnana. And surest means to this jnana is, he says that shraddhavan labate jnanam tatpara samyatendriya jnanam labdha param shanti ashridam adhikattadi. So those who have faith, they will attain this jnana. So once attaining this jnana, one have this peace. And this peace is effectively jnana, attaining that chitta shuddhi and jnana moksha state. Jivan Mukta state. And then Jnana, Bhagavan explains that the Jnana is the killer of the samshaya, doubts. And Ajnascha Shraddhadanascha Samshayatma Vinishyate Nayam Lokosti Naparo Nakasum Nasukam Samshayatmana Yoga Sanyasta Karmanam Jnana Sanchina Samshayam Atmavantam Na Karmani Nibaddanti Dhananjaya Tasmat Jnana Sambhutam Pritham Jnana Srinatmanah Chitvainam Samshayam Yogamatishtottishta Bharata. So he says that Ajna, Shraddha, Samshayatmana, they do not have, they will vinashyati, they will not achieve anything and they do not have any happiness here or in the next world. That's why through this jnana, remove all these samshayas and then taking this jnana khadga, this sword of jnana, cut all into pieces of this samshaya you have, and through that all the grief and shoka moha, whatever you have, uttishta, now get up and perform your karma, that is get into engage in this battle. So like this Bhagavan explains in this chapter. So this karma sannyasa yoga covering different ways of this karma and that sannyasa of karma, how to perform karma without any attachment and the benefits of that, how to attain that jnana ultimately, Bhagavan explains in this adhyaya. So next time we will look at the next adhyaya, Karma Sannyasa Yoga, 5th chapter. We will look at that next time.